Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Monday. And it is not just any Monday, it is the start for the rest of us of the college football season and the appearance of the one and only Don Fischer, celebrating his 50th year in the broadcast booth. So if you're at home listening, give him a bit of round of applause, please. But welcome, Don Fischer. How are you, sir?
Guys. Appreciate you having me, Jim. As always, I'm doing well.
Love to have you. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com with us as well, always. Dustin usually on the college football trail is throughout the season. Don, first of all, going into your 50th year, I guarantee you, maybe the first year, but they probably just run, some of them run together because it just seems like it's another day. But man, can you believe that amount of time has gone by? Because I look back to start in my life, I'm like going, there's just no way.
Well, there's no question. Having done this for 50, well, this being my 50th year, it's amazing. And honestly, it doesn't feel like it was more than maybe 10 or 15 years ago when I started. But that's kind of how time is. Am I coming across okay? Is it loud enough here?
No, you're great.
Okay. At any rate, I'm excited about it. I'm always excited at the beginning of a new football season because it's the start of a new school year. I just feel like, and I've always kind of felt this way about my job. It's kind of like you have 9 months of going through your football, basketball seasons, and then all of a sudden it's over with. So you take the summer off and then you're back out there doing it again the next year. And I've always kind of felt that way about it. And I've always been excited about it. I've always been optimistic about it, despite the fact that I've been doing Indiana for 49 years. And some of those have been some pretty tragic years, like last year for this football program. So, but I am optimistic. I think Tom Allen has done a remarkable job of revitalizing his football team in the sense of getting their mentality back to changing the mentality again. And he's had to do that because of last season. And I'm really optimistic about what we're going to see. Now, this first game is really critical. There's no question about that. Illinois has really improved, as everybody has seen from their performance against Wyoming on Saturday. They won 38-6, and it was a no contest. Obviously, Brett Bielema has done a terrific job in his first year. Last year, the last 5 games they played last year, they won 3 of them, including wins over Minnesota and Penn State. That he's done a great job of revitalizing the Illinois program, and they think that they're going to be very good this year, as the indication would be after their first win over Wyoming. I think this is going to be a huge challenge for this Indiana football team. And, what's the old cliche? Coach's cliche is we get better. The most improvement we're going to have is in week 2 because we've already had a game under our belt and had a chance to fix a lot of things.
Yeah, I asked Brett Bielema that very question at the Big Ten Media Days this year, and he knew because I was on the Indiana beat where I was going with it. So he was like, well, yeah, for those who haven't played, the most improvement is between weeks 1 and 2. But yeah, they're as a team, there's no way that they're not better. And I think that they still have an advantage. I know that they don't know a lot about Indiana's offense and personnel, but I think I might trade off having that game as opposed to not. But we'll see, because it's going to happen this Friday.
No question. I don't like it's happening on Friday.
That's another point. Yeah, I wanted to make. So yeah,
look, our college athletics is all about money these days. We know that. $7 billion for the Big Ten. You got to be kidding me. So who dictates that? It's television. Television dictates, and they want to play a Friday night game. And obviously, this is Indiana's turn to have a Friday night game. Hopefully, it doesn't happen very often, but. That said, this is going to be a huge, important game for Indiana football. And I say that from the standpoint that how about the mentality of this team after a loss last year, after losing or having a 2-10 season? And the mentality of your football team is hugely important to whether or not you're going to be successful. And I think this football team needs to win that opening game against an Illinois team that's very capable of beating them.
Dustin, we've talked about the importance of that on winning this very game. So that has not changed, especially after their win this weekend.
No, and it seems to me, Don, that right now, heading into the season, knowing that Illinois played a game already, Tom Allen understands that that's probably a big advantage for Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini. So the reason he's probably a little bit more secretive than he has been in the past is to get any little bit of advantage he can heading into that week one game, not naming a starting quarterback to the public. He's already named it internally. Not showing much of the offense, only allowing a certain amount of practice for media and things like that. They're trying to keep this thing as quiet as possible because I think that program and I think Tom Allen knows just how important, just like the rest of us, if they don't win this game, you start to look at the teams in the Big Ten and you say, okay, where am I going to win games? Because Illinois is an improved team, as you mentioned, Don. Maryland, Rutgers, those teams are no longer gimmies. Those are improved programs, and Indiana's going to have their handful from the opening kickoff until the time the clock winds against Purdue on Thanksgiving weekend in November.
No question about that. This is a tough league. It's been a tough league forever, but it's really getting good. And there's nobody that you play that isn't a good football team, and you've got to be ready for all of them. But from Indiana's perspective, there has to be dramatic improvement over a year ago. And that improvement has to be not just on the offensive side, it has to be on the defensive side as well. And that's why I think I have a real positive feel right now for what we're going to see on Friday night, because I do think Indiana's defense is going to be better than they were a year ago. They've got a lot of that personnel back and a lot of talented guys there, and they're going back to that aggressive system that was so successful 2 seasons ago when Kane Womack was the defensive coordinator. And Tom, I think, thinks he made a mistake last year in changing the defense, and it wasn't just him; it was the new defensive coordinator they brought in a year ago. But that guy's gone, and they're going back to what they used to do and were so successful at. I think that's huge, and I do think that the personnel on the defensive side of the football will be ready for it. I think they're going to be much better in that area. That said, the offense has got to get better too, a lot better than they were a year ago, and we'll see how that turns out, because you're going to have a new quarterback, you're going to have a new running back, you're going to have new wide receivers. But I do think the wide receivers and the running backs are big upgrades over what we saw last year. I don't think there's any question about that. And based on what we saw at the quarterback position, I think that's going to be a big upgrade too.
And Don, of course, the biggest question was offensive line. Everything starts and stops there. Fortunately for Indiana, while it was their probably weakest link last year, it is their most veteran group this year. So hopefully there is a carryover of that experience, of that growth, because that's going to be the starting and stopping point of Indiana's success. No matter what they're doing offensively, they're going to have to give, whether it's Tuttle or Bazelak, the time to do what they need to do, and the holes for the running backs to do what they need to do.
Well, no question. And I think Walt Bell, the new offensive coordinator for Indiana, realizes that. And I think he has simplified the things for the offensive line. I think that's one important factor. I think whatever tempo they play, and I think it's going to be a faster tempo than what we saw in the past. That's just my gut. And having watched spring practice and watch what we've seen in the fall, I think that will help the offensive line if they go faster. That may require more guys in the offensive line, maybe more offensive linemen, because that can wear an offensive line out too, going a really fast tempo. They're going to have some other guys step up. So depth becomes an issue. And at Indiana, it's always about depth in the offensive line. You can't afford to lose anybody, but you've got to have at least 2 or 3 other guys that can step in there and play. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I think the positives of this whole thing are the improvement at running back, the improvement at wide receiver. I do think quarterback play will be better than it was a year ago this season. And then I do think the defense is going to be improved as well. So with those improvements, if they come to fruition, I think this team can be very successful.
Also, quickly, I know that because you got to go. Just a little tweak in the booth. Rhett Lewis is going to be with you this year, in addition to Joe Smith. Also, is this Joe's 49th, 50th year?
No, this is year 40 for him helping me. He's had different roles throughout the years. He's been a stat guy. He's been an engineer. We didn't truly have an engineer for about up until the last 5 years. We really used other people. I mean, we had an engineer back when I first started, but we shoved Joe in that engineering position because he knows broadcasting and knows what I like in that sense. And back in the day when the equipment was a lot simpler than it is today, we were able to get it done, sometimes with mirrors. But that said, Joe's this year, his 40th will be his last. Because he's had some physical issues, as everybody knows. He went through that thing about 5 years ago where he almost was killed, falling backwards down steps in his apartment complex. At any rate, Joe's going to take over the wrap-up show, the post-game wrap-up show with Ken Bykoff this year to finish out his 40th year with me. And he will continue to do the high school sports, I think, for WGCL and their radio station in Bloomington. But Rhett Lewis will take over for Buck Sewer. Buck retired after last season. He wants to do a lot of things with his grandkids in his retirement, along with some bucket list things like headed to an Alabama football game in Tuscaloosa, Green Bay for a Packer game in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He's got a bunch of things he wants to do, and I don't blame him a bit, although I'm upset with him. He ends it my 50th year. Now I'm breaking in two new guys. John Herrick takes over for Joe Smith in the pregame, halftime, postgame role this year. So we got a bit different crew, but honestly, the guys I've had in the past were tremendous people and did tremendous jobs for me and for our broadcast. And I'm going to miss them both. There's no question about that.
Absolutely, as will I and everybody else when you have the chance to listen, because it's part of a great team, and it has been a great team. But the pinnacle of that, Don Fischer, we appreciate you, man. Looking forward to hearing the first broadcast on the kickoff this Friday night. What time is the broadcast start?
Yeah, we'll get underway at 7:00.
And don't forget, this Wednesday, the first coaches show at Southern Stone, right?
Yep, we'll be back at Southern Stone this year. I'm going to talk to Mike Ross. I mean, he told me all kinds of things about how things were going to change for this year, and now it hasn't changed a bit.
Blame the city of Bloomington, baby. Blame the city of Bloomington.
Don't get me in trouble.
Oh, no, don't get me in trouble. Looking forward to it. Don Fischer, I cannot thank you enough. It is always a pleasure and a treat.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jim. Thanks, Dustin. See you guys.